Hi, I'm Patrick Reagan. Welcome to the Network Routing and Routers, Part 7, Configuring Cisco Routers. This continues our discussion on Cisco routers with a focus on configuring the router. As always, stick around for the practice questions at the end to test your knowledge and help you prepare for the Network Plus exam. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to click the like button, and if you have not already, subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel for more tech training content and technical know-how. The traditional operating system for Cisco routers is the Cisco IOS. IOS is short for Inter-Network Operating System. During boot up, the Cisco router will load the operating system while in kernel mode. When the operating system is loaded, you begin in user mode. User mode allows an admin to have access to some monitoring commands only, such as the ping command, and to view the configuration of the device. It is designated by the greater than sign prompt. Privilege mode is a protected mode that has the ability to configure all the commands and manage the device. It is also known as the master mode, system mode, or kernel mode. To get into privilege mode, you just have to execute the enable command. It is recommended to have a password for privilege mode. It is designated by the pound prompt. The running config is the current active configuration of a Cisco router stored in RAM. The startup config is the configuration saved in non-volatile memory, NVRAM, that is loaded when the device boots up. To show the switch configuration, you would execute one of the following: show running-config or show run. To show the saved configuration, if one is saved, execute one of the following commands: show startup-config or show start. If changes were made to the running configuration, you need to save the configuration to the startup config with one of the following commands: copy running-config startup-config or write mem. Don't forget to save your changes. The config T command on a Cisco device is used to enter global configuration mode. This mode allows you to make changes to the router's configuration that affect the entire device or specific interfaces, protocols, or settings. To enter the global configuration mode, you would execute the following from privilege mode: config T, which is short for configure terminal. It is indicated by the config pound prompt. In global configuration mode, you can configure system-wide settings such as creating or modifying access control lists, configuring interfaces, setting up router protocols, managing VLANs, configuring security features like SSH or passwords, and setting global parameters such as hostname or logging. One of the most popular commands for Cisco IOS is show version. To change the name of our router, you would use the hostname command. Hostname router1. To add a password to the console, you must first use the following command to change to the console interface: line console 0. Then use the password command, password Cisco. Notes: the default username and password is Cisco, so you should use a different password, and you should use a strong, hard to guess password. Remember to always change the default password on network gear, including switches and routers. To get back to the global configuration, you would use the exit command. To change to the password-free VTY, which is used for Telnet and SSH, you would switch to line VTY 015. Then use the password command to set the password. To change the password to enter privilege mode, you would execute the enable password command from the configure terminal prompt. To verify that the interface is disabled, you can use the show IP interface brief or show interfaces command to check the status. The screenshot shows the show IP interface brief command. Cisco router and switch ports are designated by a logical naming convention that indicates the physical location typically in the format of slot/module/port or slot/port. For example, Gigabit Ethernet 0/0 means port 0 on module 0, while 10.3/1/4 would represent a 10 gigabit port on slot 3, module 1, and port 4. The specific number of fields depends on the device's complexity, such as the use of network modules or chassis-based systems. The various interfaces will either be Fast Ethernet, or FA, which is a fast Ethernet interface running at 100 megabits per second, Gigabit Ethernet, or GI, which is a gigabit Ethernet interface, 10 gigabit Ethernet, or TE, which is a 10 gigabit Ethernet, and Serial, which is the serial interface. This screenshot shows the Show Interfaces command. You can then switch to an interface using the interface command, and you can specify the description, duplex full or duplex half, and speed 100 or speed 1000. To disable or shut down an interface, you would use the shutdown command. To enable the interface, you would use the no shutdown command. You assign IP addresses to Cisco router interfaces when they are connected to a network to enable communications. This is done to allow the router to be remotely managed, to connect to other networks, or to function as a gateway for other devices on the local network. To enable remote management, an IP address is assigned to an interface to allow access for management purposes via tools like Telnet or SSH. To connect to a network, a static IP address from an ISP is assigned to a WAN interface to connect to the internet. To connect multiple networks, different interfaces are assigned different IP addresses from different subnets to allow the router to route traffic between them. To provide a gateway for a local network, a specific interface is assigned an IP address to act as the default gateway for the devices on that local network. To configure a VLAN interface, for layer 3 switches, you assign an IP address to the switch virtual interface, or SVI, to allow for routing between VLANs. Note, any VLAN can be assigned a management port. You can then use the router to test connectivity with the ping command, and you can use the ping command on the computer or other network devices to test connectivity to the router. To configure the management port, you would select the management interface, which is typically VLAN, but may be different for your enterprise organization. Interface VLAN 1. Assigning an IP address and subnet using the IP address 192.168.1.2 space 255.255.255.0. Enable the interface, no shutdown, and then configure the default gateway, IP default-gateway 192.168.1.1. Don't forget to save your configuration. For management ports, you'll need to configure the default gateway so that it can be reached from different networks. To configure the IP version 6 address of the router interface, you would select the management interface, which is typically VLAN, such as using int gig 0/0, and assign an IP address at subnet mask using the IPv6 address command. Enable the interface with the no shutdown command, and don't forget to save your configuration. For router interfaces, you do not configure a default gateway. However, you should define a static default route using the IP route 0.0.0.0 space 0.0.0.0 command with the next hop address in global configuration mode. This command directs all traffic not matching any other route to the specified next hop IP address, which is typically the IP address of an upstream router's interface. To define a static route on a Cisco router, you use the IP route command in global configuration mode. Static routes are manually configured routes that specify the destination network and the next hop IP address or exit interface to reach the network. Static routes are useful in small networks or in cases where you want to override dynamic routing protocols. The syntax for the IP route command is IP route, destination network, subnet mask, next hop IP address or exit interface, administrative distance, which is optional, and the permanent, which is optional. Destination network is the network you want to reach, while the subnet mask is the subnet mask of the destination network. Next hop IP address or exit interface is the IP address of the next hop or the local interface that connects to the destination. The administrative distance is a value to influence route preference. Default is 1 for static routes. And permanent keeps the static route in the routing table even if the interface goes down. An example to forward packets destined for the 10.0.0.0/24 network to the next hop of 192.168.1.1 would be configure terminal, IP route 10.0.0.0, 255.255.255.0, 192.168.1.1, and then exit. Alternatively, you can specify the interface instead of the next hop IP. Configure terminal, IP route 10.0.0.0.0, 255.255.255.0, gigabit Ethernet 0/0, and exit. To assign administrative distance to 5, you would add 5 to the end of the command. To verify the static route, you'd use the following command: show IP route. The static route will be marked with S, and directly connected interfaces are marked with the C. The steps to configure OSPF routing on a Cisco router would be: first, you would have to enable the OSPF routing by using router OSPF1. Then you would configure the OSPF network. You want to include the interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0 with an IP address of 192.168.1.1 with /24 seeder, and OSPF area 1, you would use network 192.168.1.0, 0.0.0.255, area 0. Alternatively, you can assign OSPF to an interface, IP OSPF1 area 0. To set the OSPF cost of the interface, which influences the OSPF metrics, you would use IP OSPF cost 10. To set the priority of the interface, which is used for designated router elections, you would use IP OSPF priority 100. You can verify OSPF operations using the following commands. To display OSPF configuration and state of each interface, you can use the Show IP OSPF interface. To display OSPF neighbors, show IP OSPF neighbor. Then, to show the OSPF routes in the routing table, show IP route OSPF. Routes with the O designate the OSPF routes. Question: what command is used to show the current configuration of a Cisco router? Answer: show run. Question: what commands are used to save the current running configuration? Choose two answers. Answers: copy running -config, startup -config, and write mem. Question: what command is used to enter privilege mode on a Cisco router? Answer: enable. Question: what command is used to check the status of a router interface on a Cisco router? Answer: show interfaces. Question: what command is used to list the router table on Cisco routers? Answer: show IP route. For more information, visit these sites. In summary, Cisco has two modes: user mode, which allows an admin to have access to some monitoring commands only, such as the ping command, and to view the configuration of the device, and privilege mode, which is a protected mode that has the ability to configure all the commands and manage the device. To show the router configuration, you would execute the show running config or show run commands, and to show the saved configuration, if one is saved, execute show startup config or show start. Thank you for watching this video. The next video will be Network Routing and Routers, Part 8, Troubleshooting Routing and Routers. If you like this video, click the like button, and if you have not already, subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel. Thank you.